Marcus Webb's lips were on a dying stranger's mouth when the cameras started flashing. He didn't know her name. Didn't know she was worth $3 billion. Didn't know that breathing life back into Vivian Ashford-Price's lungs would paint a target on his back bigger than the one that sent him to prison 12 years ago. All he knew was this: the kiss that saved her was captured by 47 phones, watched by 18 million people by sunrise, and would bring killers to his daughter's doorstep by sunset. But first, he had to survive the next 60 seconds in 34-degree water. Now, drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Let's go, Marcus. Webb was 3 minutes from his daughter's school when he saw the Mercedes go over. Not saw exactly, felt it. The way you feel thunder before you hear it. That split second when the air pressure changes and every nerve in your body screams wrong. The SUV had been in the fast lane doing maybe 65. Black GL-class tinted windows, the kind of vehicle that cost more than Marcus made in 3 years of driving for Auto Lease Logistics. He'd noticed it, the way he noticed everything since Leavenworth, that prison-taught hyper-awareness that never quite shut off. Then the semi jackknifed. Black ice on the bridge. December in D.C. Temperature dropping fast after a day of freezing rain. The truck's trailer swung wide like a gate closing, and the Mercedes driver overcorrected tires, shrieking, and Marcus watched in his rear view as the SUV punched through the barrier like it was made of cardboard, the sound of metal tearing. Then nothing. Just the terrible silence of something heavy disappearing into the Potomac River. Marcus's foot hit the brake. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his heart was hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Around him, cars were stopping, doors opening. People getting out with their phones already up recording. Nobody running toward the water. He sat there for maybe 5 seconds. Could have been 5 years. Time did that, sometimes stretched and compressed like taffy, especially when his brain was trying to decide between the smart thing and the right thing. The smart thing was to keep driving. Call 911 from a safe distance. Stay anonymous. Stay clean. He'd been out of prison for 14 months, and his parole officer, Mr. Harrison, had been crystal clear. No hero shit, Webb. You're not a Marine anymore. You're a convicted felon on supervised release. You see trouble, you walk away. You see someone drowning, you call the professionals. You do not under any circumstances make yourself the story. The right thing was already getting out of his 10-year-old Honda, already kicking off his work boots, already thinking about water temperature and submersion time, and whether 12 years away from combat medicine had made him forget how to save a life. His phone buzzed. Text from Kennedy, his daughter. Dad, where are you? I'm the only one left again. 12 years old. Old enough to know her father was the kind of man other parents whispered about. Young enough to still believe he might change. Marcus looked at the water, black and cold and moving fast. He looked at his phone. He looked at the crowd of people recording, not helping, already narrating this tragedy for their followers. Then he ran for the bridge railing. The jump was maybe 20 feet. Felt like flying. Felt like falling. Felt like every mistake he'd ever made compressed into one terrible choice. The water hit like he'd been shot. All the air slammed out of his lungs. His body locked up, every muscle seizing, and for a second, he couldn't remember how to swim, couldn't remember his own name. Just cold. Just darkness. Just the certainty that he'd made another catastrophic error in judgment. But his body remembered things his brain had forgotten. Marine Corps Training Combat Lifesaver. Course 3 deployments worth of pulling wounded Marines from places they shouldn't have been. His arms started moving. His legs kicked. He forced his eyes open in the murky water and saw the Mercedes 10 feet below him, sinking fast, headlights still on and glowing like dying stars. He dove. The driver was already gone. Marcus could see that from 15 feet away. The man's head was bent at an angle that meant his neck had snapped on impact, probably before the water even started coming in. Nothing to be done there. But in the back seat, pressed against the window, was a woman. White woman, blonde, late 20s maybe. Expensive looking even through the murky water and rising panic. Her eyes were open. She was still fighting, still trying to get the door open, even though water pressure made that impossible. She saw Marcus and their eyes locked for half a second. Hers were light pale blue or gray wide with terror. His were dark brown calm despite everything, because this part he knew how to do. He grabbed the door handle, planted his feet against the car frame, pulled. Nothing. The pressure was too much. The Mercedes was maybe 15 feet down now, still sinking, and every second that passed made the door heavier, made the water colder, made Marcus's muscles slower. The woman was screaming. He couldn't hear it, but he could see it, see her mouth open, see the last of her air escaping in silver bubbles. Marcus pulled again. His shoulders burned, his lungs burned, everything burned. The door gave way so suddenly he tumbled backward, and then the woman was floating out, suspended in the dark water, like a ghost in an expensive dress. Marcus grabbed her, hooked his arm under her chin the way they'd taught him at Camp Lejeune 20 years ago, kicked for the surface. His vision was going spotty at the edges, black creeping in from the sides. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore, couldn't feel his feet, just had to trust that his body knew up from down, that his legs were still kicking, that the surface was close. They broke through, and Marcus gasped, sucking in air that felt like broken glass in his throat. The woman wasn't breathing. Strong hands were reaching down from the bridge, from the concrete embankment, where emergency vehicles were already arriving. Someone was shouting instructions, but Marcus couldn't hear them over the roaring in his ears. They pulled the woman up first. Then Marcus. He collapsed on the concrete, his whole body shaking so violently he couldn't control it. The woman was on her back beside him, lips blue, skin white as paper, not breathing. Marcus rolled onto his knees. His hands were shaking, but they remembered what to do. Tilt her head back. Check for a pulse. Start compressions. 30 and 2. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The rhythm they'd drilled into him until he could do it in his sleep. He started counting out loud. 1, 2, 3. Around him phones were up, lights flashing, people recording everything. Someone was narrating, "Oh my God, he's doing CPR. He just pulled her out of the water. This is insane." Marcus ignored them. 14, 15, 16. Her chest wasn't rising. His compressions weren't deep enough, or he was doing them wrong, or she'd been under too long, or 28, 29, 30. He tilted her head back, pinched her nose, put his mouth on hers. Her lips were ice cold, tasted like river water and something expensive, perfume maybe. He breathed into her. Once, twice. Nothing. Back to compressions. 1, 2, 3. This was how it had gone wrong in Fallujah. Marine down IED blast Marcus doing everything right and watching the guy die anyway because sometimes right wasn't enough. Sometimes the universe just said no. 14, 15, 16. Not again. Not this woman whose name he didn't know. Not today. 28, 29, 30. He breathed into her again. Once, twice. She coughed. Water sprayed from her mouth. Her eyes flew open that pale blue-gray, and they locked onto his face with an intensity that made him forget he was freezing to death. She coughed again, violent, her whole body convulsing. Marcus rolled her onto her side, and she vomited water onto the concrete. Kept coughing, kept breathing, alive. The crowd erupted in applause, and Marcus wanted to disappear into the pavement. Paramedics swarmed in. Someone threw a thermal blanket over his shoulders. Someone else was asking his name, asking what he saw, asking if he needed medical attention. Marcus stood up. His legs barely held him. His daughter was waiting, and he was already 40 minutes late. "I'm fine," he said. His voice came out rough, shredded. "I need to go." But a police officer was there now, gentle but firm. "Sir, we need a statement. What you did was incredibly brave, but we need to document everything." Marcus looked past him at the woman. She was on a stretcher, now oxygen mask on her face, paramedics checking her vitals. But she was looking at him, staring, like she was trying to memorize his face. Their eyes met one more time, and Marcus had the strangest feeling that his life had just changed in a way he couldn't possibly understand yet. Then the ambulance doors closed, and she was gone. The police interview took 35 minutes. Marcus sat in the back of a patrol car with the heat blasting still soaking wet, answering the same questions over and over. No, sir, he didn't know the woman. No, sir, he didn't see what caused the accident, just the aftermath. Yes, sir, he understood he'd put himself at considerable risk. No, sir, he didn't need to go to the hospital, he just needed to pick up his daughter. The officer taking his statement was young, maybe 25, and kept looking at Marcus like he'd just witnessed a miracle. "You saved her life, man. You know that, right? Another 30 seconds and she'd be dead." Marcus said nothing. The officer's partner, older and more skeptical, ran Marcus's license and came back with an expression that Marcus knew well. The look that said, "Oh, you're one of those. Says here you're on parole, Mr. Webb." "Yes, sir." "Federal time, Leavenworth. 12 years for manslaughter during the commission of a felony." "Yes, sir." The younger officer's hero worship expression flickered. The older one's skepticism hardened into something colder. "You're supposed to notify your parole officer of any police contact within 24 hours. "I will, sir." "You're also supposed to avoid situations that might bring you to law enforcement attention." Marcus looked at him steadily. "I jumped in a river to save a drowning woman. Should I have let her die?" The older officer's jaw tightened. "I'm just saying someone with your record should be careful about playing hero. People might wonder about your motives." The younger one spoke up. "Hey, come on, the guy just saved someone's life." "The guy is a convicted felon," the older officer said. "And we don't know anything about what happened out there except what he's telling us." Marcus felt something old and familiar rising in his chest. That same cold fury that had gotten him in trouble 12 years ago. But he was older now, smarter, better at swallowing it down. "Am I free to go?" he asked quietly. The older officer stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. "For now. But we'll be in touch if we have more questions." Marcus got out of the patrol car. His clothes were still dripping. His phone had 7 missed calls from Kennedy's school. By the time he got to Langston Charter Academy, it was 6:47 p.m. The after-school program closed at 6:30. Kennedy was sitting alone in the main office, her backpack in her lap, her face carefully blank in that way she'd learned from watching him deal with disappointment. Ms. Patterson, the program director, was less forgiving. "Mr. Webb, this is the 4th time this month." "I know, I'm sorry. There was an emergency." "There's always an emergency." Her voice was kind but firm. "I have to be honest with you. If this continues, we're going to have to remove Kennedy from the program. We have liability issues. We can't have children here unsupervised after hours." Marcus nodded, apologized again, promised to do better, knowing even as he said it that promises from men like him carried about as much weight as smoke. Kennedy didn't say anything until they were in the car, then staring out the window. Zoe's mom saw it. Marcus pulled out of the parking lot. "Saw what?" "The video of you saving that lady. It's already on Twitter." She turned to look at him, and her eyes were too old for 12, too knowing. "She told Zoe that you're going to be famous, that her mom is probably going to do a story on you for the Post." Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. "That right. She also told Zoe that you went to prison, that you killed someone, that maybe I shouldn't come over anymore because you're dangerous." There it was. The thing Marcus had been dreading since the day he got out. The moment when his daughter's friends' parents decided that his past made him too risky to be around their precious children. "What did you say?" he asked. Kennedy shrugged. I said my dad made a mistake a long time ago and paid for it, and that Zoe's mom should mind her own business. She paused. Then I said some other stuff that I probably shouldn't have. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. You get detention. 3 days. Kennedy. She said you were dangerous, Dad. What was I supposed to do? Marcus didn't have an answer for that. He drove in silence for a while, navigating the evening traffic, trying to figure out what to say. Finally, I did go to prison. That's true. And I did kill someone, though it was an accident. Those are facts, and you can't change facts by defending me. I know that. But you're not responsible for what I did. You don't have to fight people because they say true things about your father. Kennedy looked at him. Are you a dangerous person? The question hit Marcus in the chest. He thought about the security guard who died during that robbery 12 years ago. Thought about the choices he'd made. Thought about the woman he'd pulled from the river today still alive because he jumped when he could have walked away. I don't think so, he said slowly. But I've done dangerous things. And people who've done dangerous things sometimes have a hard time convincing other people they've changed. They drove the rest of the way home in silence. Their apartment was in Congress Heights, Southeast D.C., in a building that had probably been nice once, maybe in the 70s. Now, it was just cheap, which was all Marcus could afford on his warehouse salary, and the occasional weekend driving for auto lease. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, neighbors who fought at all hours. But it was theirs, and it was legal, and nobody could take it away, as long as Marcus kept paying rent and didn't violate his parole. He made Kennedy dinner spaghetti with sauce from a jar garlic bread from the freezer while she did homework at their kitchen table that wobbled on uneven legs. His phone kept buzzing, but he ignored it. After Kennedy went to bed, Marcus finally looked at his phone. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages. His email was flooded. The video had gone viral. Not just viral, supernova viral. 18 million views on Twitter. 22 million on TikTok. Shared by celebrities, politicians, news outlets. Unidentified man saves drowning woman in heroic river rescue. Someone had gotten his name from the police report. Marcus Webb, 44, pulls heiress Vivian Ashford-Price from Potomac River. Then someone else had found his criminal record. Hero with a past man who saved Vivian Ashford-Price served 12 years for felony manslaughter. By 11 p.m., the full story was everywhere. Cable news was running it. From convict to hero. The complicated story of Marcus Webb. Marcus turned off his phone and sat in his dark living room, listening to his neighbors argue through the walls, and wondered how long he had before this got worse. The knock came at 6:15 a.m. Marcus opened the door with the chain still on, and saw a woman in a camel-colored coat standing in his hallway. Mid-50s black, elegant, in a way that spoke of money and power. Behind her stood a younger white man in a dark suit, arms crossed, clearly security. The woman smiled. Mr. Webb. My name is Dr. Lorraine Ashford-Price. I'm Vivian's mother. May I come in? Marcus unlatched the chain and stepped back. The apartment probably looked even worse at 6 in the morning than it had the day before. Kennedy's cereal bowl still on the counter, his wet clothes from yesterday draped over the radiator, the general air of barely keeping it together that he'd been living with for 14 months. Dr. Lorraine Ashford-Price walked in like she was entering a museum, taking in every detail without judgment, which somehow made it worse. The security guy stayed in the hallway, arms still crossed, eyes scanning the stairwell like threats might materialize from the peeling paint. Coffee, Marcus asked, because his mother had raised him with manners, even if prison had taught him to distrust people who showed up at dawn. Please. Lorraine sat on his second-hand couch without hesitation. Black if you have it. Marcus poured 2 cups from the pot he'd made 20 minutes earlier when he couldn't sleep anymore. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing through possibilities, none of them good. Rich people didn't show up at your door at sunrise to say thank you. They sent lawyers' publicists checks in the mail. They showed up when they wanted something. He handed her the coffee and sat in the chair across from her. "Your daughter, okay?" "Recovering. She spent 2 nights in the hospital for observation. Hypothermia, water in her lungs, mild shock. But she's alive because of you." Lorraine took a sip of coffee and didn't flinch, even though Marcus knew it was terrible, bitter, and weak at the same time. The doctor said another 90 seconds, and she would have been brain dead. "I'm glad she's all right." "Are you—" Lorraine's eyes were sharp, assessing. "Because you left the scene pretty quickly, didn't wait to see if she was going to make it, didn't give any interviews, turned off your phone." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I had to pick up my daughter from school, and I don't talk to reporters." "Because of your record." "Because of my record." Lorraine nodded slowly. 12 years in Leavenworth. Felony manslaughter during the commission of a robbery. You were 28 when you went in. Marine Corps veteran, 2 tours in Iraq, honorable discharge. Then you came home, and 3 years later you were helping your cousin rob a check cashing place in Baltimore. Marcus said nothing. She'd clearly done her homework. "The security guard had a heart attack during the robbery," Lorraine continued. "Harold Bennett, 62 years old. You tried to save him. Performed CPR while your cousin fled. You stayed with him until the ambulance arrived, even though you knew you'd be arrested. He died anyway." "Yes, ma'am." "You pled guilty, expressed remorse. Got 12 years instead of 25 because the judge believed you genuinely tried to save that man's life." "That's right." "And now you've saved my daughter's life." Lorraine leaned forward. "I need to know why." Marcus frowned. "Why what?" "Why you jumped. You're on parole. You have a daughter. You had every reason to call 911 and keep driving. But you didn't. You jumped into freezing water and pulled a stranger out of a sinking car. Why?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about all the easy answers he could give. Because it was the right thing to do. Because someone needed help. Because he couldn't live with himself if he'd walked away. But he'd learned in prison that rich people could smell bullshit from a mile away, and Vivian Ashford-Price struck him as someone who'd spent a lifetime detecting lies. "Because I already let one person die," he said finally. "And I wasn't going to let it happen again if I could help it." Lorraine studied him for a long moment. Then she set down her coffee cup and pulled an envelope from her purse. "I came here to give you this, a token of our family's gratitude. But now I'm going to ask you something instead." Marcus didn't reach for the envelope. "I don't want your money. It's $50,000. Enough to get your daughter into a better school. Move out of this neighborhood. Maybe start over somewhere your past doesn't follow you quite so closely." "I appreciate that. But no." "Why not?" "Because I didn't pull your daughter out of that river for a reward. I did it because she needed help, and I was there." Lorraine smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "You're the 3rd person who's turned down our money in the last 48 hours, Mr. Webb. Do you know who the other 2 were?" Marcus shook his head. "The police officers who investigated the accident. They declined a reward for doing their jobs." She paused. "Everyone else, the paramedics, the tow truck driver, the reporters who broke the story, they all took it. Some asked for more. But you, the ex-convict with the most to gain, you're saying no." "Yes, ma'am. That's either very noble or very stupid." Marcus shrugged. "Probably both." That surprised a laugh out of her. "Fair enough." She tucked the envelope back in her purse. "Then let me tell you why I'm really here. My daughter didn't have an accident. Someone tried to kill her." The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. Marcus kept his face carefully neutral. "You should tell the police." "I did. They think I'm a paranoid mother who can't accept that accidents happen." Lorraine pulled out her phone and started swiping through images. The truck driver who jackknifed, he disappeared from the hospital before police could get a full statement. His company says the truck was stolen. They have no record of anyone by his name working for them. She showed Marcus a photo of the driver's license the police had found. White man, mid-40s, average in every way. The kind of face you'd forget 5 seconds after seeing it. The Mercedes Vivian was riding in the brakes had been tampered with. Forensics found evidence of brake line cutting that was covered up to look like normal wear, and the route she was taking wasn't her usual route home. Someone texted her from my phone number telling her I was having a medical emergency and needed her to meet me at Georgetown Hospital immediately. Marcus looked up from the phone. You didn't send that text. I was in Boston at a medical conference. My phone never left my hotel room, but someone spoofed my number and sent my daughter driving toward a bridge where a stolen truck was waiting to push her into the river. That's pretty sophisticated. That's premeditated murder. Lorraine's voice was hard now, all the elegant politeness stripped away. Someone wanted my daughter dead and made it look like an accident. And the police don't believe me because the Ashford-Prices have enemies. We're a black family with generational wealth in a city built on old white money, so threats are just part of our reality. Marcus handed the phone back. What does your daughter think? Vivian thinks I'm overreacting. She thinks the brake thing is a coincidence, that the text was a prank, that the truck driver was just an uninsured immigrant who panicked. She wants to move on with her life and forget this happened. But you don't. I've lived 56 years in this country as a black woman with money and power. I know the difference between paranoia and survival instinct. Lorraine's eyes locked onto his. Someone tried to kill my daughter. They failed because you jumped in that river. And now they're going to try again, because that's what people do when they want something badly enough. Marcus should have said no. Should have stood up, walked her to the door, wished her and her daughter well. He had his own daughter to think about, his own fragile new life to protect. But he was already thinking about Kennedy, asking if he was a dangerous person. About the look in Vivian's eyes when she came back to life on that embankment. About 12 years spent regretting the choices that led to Harold Bennett's heart attack. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. I want you to keep my daughter alive. I'm not a bodyguard. No, you're a Marine Corps veteran with combat medical training who's already proved he's willing to risk his life for hers. You're also someone who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. Lorraine leaned forward. I've hired professional security, former Secret Service top of the line. But Vivian won't listen to them. She thinks I'm being hysterical. She's planning to go back to work tomorrow, back to her regular routine like nothing happened. She's an adult. You can't stop her. No, but you can protect her. Be where those professionals can't be. See threats they won't see because they're looking for the wrong things. Why would I see different threats? Lorraine smiled grimly. Because you've been on the wrong side of the law, Mr. Webb. You know how criminals think. You know how desperate people behave. And right now, I need someone who understands desperation. Kennedy's bedroom door opened. She came out in her school uniform, rubbing sleep from her eyes, and stopped short when she saw they had company. Morning, baby, Marcus said. This is Dr. Ashford-Price. She's the mother of the woman from the river. Kennedy's eyes went wide. She looked at Lorraine, then at Marcus, clearly trying to piece together what was happening. Lorraine stood and extended her hand. You must be Kennedy. Your father is a remarkable man. Kennedy shook her hand, still looking confused. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, Marcus said. Dr. Ashford-Price just came to say thank you. She's about to leave. But Lorraine was looking at Kennedy with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. How old are you, honey? 12. What grade you? 7th. Do you like your school? Kennedy glanced at Marcus, uncertain how to answer. It's okay, I guess. Just okay. Lorraine's voice was gentle. What would make it better? I don't know. Maybe if it wasn't falling apart. Or if we had actual textbooks instead of photocopies. Or if the teachers didn't quit every 3 months because they're not getting paid enough. Kennedy's voice was matter-of-fact, stating problems she'd long since accepted as unchangeable. But it's fine. I'm getting good grades. I'm sure you are. Lorraine looked back at Marcus. Langston Charter Academy. Underfunded, understaffed, 50% graduation rate. Kennedy's going to be in the 50% that graduates, Marcus said evenly. I don't doubt that, but she deserves better than 50-50 odds. Lorraine opened her purse again and pulled out a different envelope. This is a letter of recommendation to Sidwell Friends. That's where Vivian went. It's also where I sit on the board of trustees. Marcus stared at the envelope like it might bite him. Sidwell Friends was where presidents sent their kids, where diplomats and Supreme Court justices and old money families paid $40,000 a year for the best education in D.C. We can't afford that, he said. Full scholarship. Room and board if she wants it, though I assume she'd rather stay with you. The education alone is worth $250,000 over 6 years. Kennedy's breath caught. Marcus could feel her looking at him hoping, and it made his chest ache. What's the catch? He asked. 6 months. You work for me for 6 months. Keep Vivian alive until we figure out who's trying to kill her. After that, Kennedy gets her scholarship regardless of outcome. That's a hell of a catch. That's a fair trade. Lorraine's voice was steel now. Your daughter gets a future. My daughter gets to live. Everyone wins. Unless I fail and your daughter dies anyway. Then at least I'll know I did everything I could to protect her. And Kennedy still goes to Sidwell. Lorraine set the envelope on the coffee table. That's a guarantee, Mr. Webb. Whatever happens, your daughter's future is secure. Marcus looked at Kennedy, saw the hope in her eyes, the fear, the desperate wish for him to say yes, mixed with the certainty that he'd say no, because that's what he always did when things seemed too good to be true. Can I think about it? He asked. You have until noon. After that, Vivian goes back to work, and I lose what little leverage I have to keep her safe. Lorraine walked to the door, then turned back. I did my research on you, Mr. Webb. I know what happened in Baltimore. I know you've spent 12 years paying for a mistake you made in a moment of desperation. But I also know you tried to save Harold Bennett's life even when saving him meant going to prison. I went to prison anyway. Yes, but you tried. And 2 days ago you jumped in a river when you could have kept driving. She held his gaze. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to try. That's all. Just try to keep my daughter alive. After she left, Kennedy stood in the middle of the living room, holding the letter of recommendation like it might disappear if she set it down. Dad, she whispered. Sidwell Friends. That's where Chelsea Clinton went. I know, baby. Is she serious? Would they really let me go there? Marcus looked at his daughter, 12 years old, and already so used to disappointment that she couldn't quite believe in good things anymore. Just like him. Yeah, he said. I think she's serious. Are you going to do it? Are you going to help her? I don't know. It's complicated. Because you'd have to protect a rich white lady. Kennedy's voice was sharp. Is that what makes it complicated? Her daughter's not white, the family is black, and that's not... Marcus stopped. It's complicated because people are trying to kill Vivian Ashford-Price. And if I fail, if something happens to her while I'm supposed to be protecting her, that's on me. Another person dead because I made the wrong choice. Kennedy set down the letter, walked over to Marcus and took his hands. You jumped in the river, Dad. You saved her. That wasn't the wrong choice. This time it worked out. Last time it didn't. So you're never going to try again. You're just going to drive your truck and pick me up late from school and let me go to my falling apart school because you're scared you'll mess up. The words hit harder because they were true. Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug. She was getting tall almost to his shoulder now. In a few more years, she'd be grown and gone, and he'd have wasted her childhood being safe, being scared, being the kind of father who loved her, but couldn't quite give her what she needed. I'll think about it, he said into her hair. Okay, I promise, I'll think about it. She pulled back and looked at him with those two old eyes. Mr. Harrison always says you need to think about risk versus reward. That's what we're learning in pre-algebra. You weigh what you might lose against what you might gain. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't always listen. She picked up her backpack. If you say no, I'll understand. But if you say yes, I want you to know I'm not scared. I believe you'll keep her safe. After Marcus dropped Kennedy at school on time for once, he sat in his car and called his parole officer. Mr. Harrison answered on the third ring. Webb, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. You're all over the news. Yes, sir. I was calling to inform you of police contact yesterday, the accident on the bridge. I gave a statement. I know. I've already talked to the officers involved. They say you were cooperative. A pause. They also say you're a hero. That's an interesting development. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what you would do. Most people would have kept driving. Harrison's voice was cautious. How are you feeling about all the attention? Not great, sir. I imagine not. Your name is everywhere. Your record is everywhere. People are digging into your past. Yes, sir. Have you been contacted by anyone offering you money, interviews, book deals? Marcus thought about the envelope in his apartment. Some people have reached out. I've declined everything. Good, that's good. Harrison sighed. Listen, Webb, I'm going to be straight with you. This kind of publicity can go one of two ways. Either people see you as a reformed man who did something heroic, or they see you as an ex-con trying to rehabilitate his image, and the second narrative is easier to sell. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to understand that you're under a microscope now. Every move you make, every decision, people are going to question your motives. And if you step wrong, if you give them any reason to doubt you, they'll crucify you. I understand, Marcus said again. Then stay clean. Keep your head down. Let this blow over. In a month, people will forget your name and you can go back to being anonymous. Harrison paused. Unless there's something you need to tell me. Something I should know about. Marcus looked at the dashboard clock. It was 8:47. He had 3 hours and 13 minutes to decide whether to call Vivian Ashford-Price and say yes. No, sir, he said. Nothing you need to know about. All right, stay out of trouble, Webb, and congratulations on the save. Whatever else happens, you did a good thing. After he hung up, Marcus drove to the warehouse where he worked part-time. His supervisor, a white guy named Dale, who'd given him a chance when nobody else would look up from his clipboard when Marcus walked in. Thought you might not show today, Dale said. Figured you'd be doing interviews on Good Morning America or some shit. I'm here to work. Good. Because I got 3 trucks that need unloading and Rodriguez called in sick. Dale hesitated. Listen, about the thing on the news. That was pretty badass. Thanks. You need time off or anything, I can cover you for a few days if you need to deal with whatever comes with being internet famous. Marcus appreciated the offer more than he could say. I'm good. Just want to work. He spent the next 4 hours unloading shipping containers in the freezing warehouse, letting the physical labor quiet his racing mind. But by noon, when his shift ended, he still didn't know what to do. He sat in his car in the parking lot and called the number Lorraine had left. She answered immediately. Mr. Webb? I have conditions, Marcus said. I'm listening. First, I want everything in writing. The scholarship for Kennedy, the terms of employment, what exactly you're expecting from me. No handshake deals. Done. Second, I'm not a trained bodyguard. I can't promise I'll stop whatever's coming. All I can promise is I'll try. That's all I'm asking. Third, if at any point I think Kennedy is in danger because of my involvement with your family, I walk away. No questions, no guilt trips. She comes first. Agreed. Lorraine's voice was firm. Anything else? Marcus thought about his parole officer's warning, about the microscope he was under, about all the ways this could go wrong. Your daughter needs to want this. I'm not going to force protection on someone who doesn't think they need it. If she says no, then no. Then you'll need to meet her and convince her yourself. Lorraine's tone shifted, became almost amused. She's here with me now, at Georgetown Hospital for a follow-up appointment. Can you come? Marcus checked the time. Kennedy didn't get out of school until 3:30. I'll be there in 20 minutes. We're in the private wing 4th floor. Ask for the Ashford-Price suite. And Mr. Webb. Thank you. The line went dead before he could respond. Georgetown Hospital's private wing looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Marcus walked past original artwork and leather furniture, his work boots squeaking on polished floors, very aware that he probably smelled like warehouse sweat and didn't belong in a place where people paid more per night than he made in a week. The security guard outside the Ashford-Price suite was young white, built like he spent serious time in a gym. He looked Marcus up and down with barely concealed skepticism. Can I help you? Marcus Webb. Dr. Ashford-Price is expecting me. The guard spoke into his wrist mic, listened to his earpiece, then stepped aside with obvious reluctance. Go ahead, but I'll need to see ID first. Marcus handed over his driver's license and waited while the guard examined it like he was looking for forgeries. Finally, he got a nod and the door opened. Lorraine stood just inside, still elegant, even in a hospital setting. Thank you for coming so quickly. Vivian's just finishing up with her doctor. The suite had a living room separate from the bedroom, all done in soothing blues and grays. Marcus stayed near the door, hands in his pockets, feeling like an intruder. A door opened, and a woman walked out, and Marcus recognized her immediately from the river. Vivian Ashford-Price looked different. Dry, smaller, somehow more fragile. She wore expensive casual clothes. Her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, and her skin still had that translucent quality of someone who'd been seriously ill. But her eyes were the same pale blue-gray he remembered, and they landed on him with instant recognition. She stopped walking. Her hand went to her throat in an unconscious gesture. You, she said softly. Ma'am. Marcus nodded, not sure what else to do. Behind her, a white man in his 60s emerged, wearing a white coat with a stethoscope around his neck. Mrs. Ashford-Price is recovering well, but she needs rest. No stress, no strenuous activity for at least 2 more weeks. Thank you, Dr. Morrison. Lorraine shook his hand. We'll make sure she takes it easy. The doctor left, and suddenly the room felt very small. Vivian was still staring at Marcus like she couldn't quite believe he was real. This is Marcus Webb, Lorraine said. The man who pulled you out of the river. I know who he is, Mother. The whole world knows who he is. Vivian's voice was cool, controlled, nothing like the terror Marcus had seen in her eyes underwater. What I don't know is why he's here in my hospital room. Because I've asked him to help us. Help us with what? With keeping you alive. Vivian's jaw tightened. We're not having this conversation again. Yes, we are. Lorraine's tone was steel-wrapped in silk. Someone tried to kill you. The brake lines, the fake text, the stolen truck, it wasn't an accident. The police investigated. They found no evidence of foul play. The police didn't look hard enough. Vivian turned away from both of them, walked to the window overlooking the city. I'm not going to live my life in fear because you've convinced yourself there's a conspiracy. I haven't convinced myself of anything. I'm looking at facts. You're looking at coincidences and seeing patterns that aren't there. Vivian's voice rose slightly, the first crack in her composure. I had an accident. A terrible, traumatic accident. But it was an accident. And I need to move forward with my life, not hide behind bodyguards because you're worried. Marcus cleared his throat. Both women looked at him. Can I say something? He asked. Vivian's eyes were cold. I don't think... Please, Lorraine interrupted. Hear him out. Marcus took a breath. I don't know you, Mrs. Ashford-Price. Don't know your life, your situation, who might want to hurt you. But I do know what it looks like when someone's drowning. And I saw your face underwater. Vivian's expression flickered. What about it? You were fighting hard. You wanted to live. Marcus held her gaze. But I also saw your face on the bridge when you came back. And I saw something else there. Fear, yeah, but also resignation. Like you'd been expecting something bad to happen and weren't really surprised when it did. The silence stretched out. Vivian's hand went to her throat again. "That's ridiculous," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Marcus moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "Your mother says someone texted you pretending to be her. Said there was an emergency, and you just believed it without calling to confirm. I was worried. Or maybe you were already on edge, already feeling like something was wrong." Marcus kept his voice gentle. "I spent 12 years in prison, ma'am. I learned to read people pretty well, and right now I'm reading someone who's scared but trying not to show it." Vivian's composure cracked. She turned back to the window, and Marcus saw her shoulders shake once before she controlled it. "Even if I was scared," she said quietly, "what exactly are you proposing? That you follow me around like a shadow? That I rearrange my entire life because of a feeling? I'm proposing that you let me watch your back for 6 months while your mother and I figure out who's trying to hurt you. After that, if nothing happens, I walk away, and you never think about it again. And if something does happen, then at least you're alive to complain about my methods." That surprised a laugh out of her, short and sharp, but real. She turned to face him again, and something in her expression had shifted. "You're very direct, Mr. Webb. Don't have time to be anything else. Mother said you're on parole, that you went to prison for manslaughter. That's true. Why should I trust someone with your history to keep me safe?" It was a fair question. Marcus considered his answer carefully. "You shouldn't," he said finally. "Trust has to be earned. But you already know I'm willing to jump in freezing water to save your life. That's more than most people can say." Vivian studied him for a long moment. "What do you get out of this? Your mother is paying for my daughter to go to Sidwell Friends. So this is a transaction. This is a mother trying to help her daughter and me trying to give my daughter a better future. Yeah, it's a transaction. But that doesn't make it less real." Vivian looked at Lorraine. "You really think this is necessary?" "I think someone tried to kill you and almost succeeded. I think they're going to try again. And I think Mr. Webb is someone who understands what's at stake better than any professional security team I could hire." Lorraine's voice softened. "Please, Vivian. Just 6 months. Let me have peace of mind." Vivian closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were shiny with unshed tears. "Fine. 6 months. But I have conditions." "Name them," Marcus said. "First, you don't interfere with my work. I run a foundation that helps formerly incarcerated women reintegrate into society. I have clients programs events. You don't get to shut that down because you think it's too risky. I can work with that. Second, you're not my friend. You're not my confidant. You're an employee. We maintain professional boundaries at all times." "Understood." "Third, if at any point I feel like you're overstepping or making my life unbearable, I can terminate this arrangement immediately. No arguments." Marcus glanced at Lorraine, who nodded slightly. "Okay, but I get one condition of my own." "Which is?" "You tell me the truth about everything. Who you're meeting, where you're going if you feel threatened or notice anything strange. You don't hide things from me because you think I'm overreacting." Vivian's jaw set. "I don't like being monitored." "I'm not monitoring you. I'm protecting you. There's a difference." Marcus moved closer. "Look, I get it. You're independent, successful, used to handling your own problems. But someone with resources and planning tried to kill you. That's not something you handle alone." "How do you know they have resources?" "Because they spoofed your mother's phone number, tampered with your brakes without leaving obvious evidence, and coordinated a fake accident that looked real enough to fool the police. That takes money, technical skill, and patience." Marcus paused. "Which means whoever's coming for you isn't going to stop just because you survived once." The truth of that hung in the air between them. Vivian wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller and younger. "I have to go back to work tomorrow," she said. "We're launching a new job training program for women coming out of the correctional system. I've been planning it for 6 months. I can't just cancel." "I'm not asking you to cancel. I'm asking you to let me be there." "As what my bodyguard people will ask questions." Lorraine spoke up. "He's a consultant. You're considering adding a peer mentor component to your program, someone who's been through the system and come out the other side. Marcus is there to evaluate the program and provide input." Vivian looked at Marcus. "Have you ever done anything like that?" "No, ma'am, but I've been through the system. I know what it's like to try to rebuild your life when society's already decided who you are." He met her eyes. "And I know what it's like to make one mistake and spend the rest of your life paying for it." Something shifted in Vivian's expression. "The security guard. The one who died during your robbery. What was his name?" "Harold Bennett." "Do you think about him?" "Every day." "Do you think you've paid enough 12 years in prison for one man's death?" Marcus thought about Kennedy asking if he was a dangerous person, about jumping into the river, about all the ways he'd tried and failed to make up for that one terrible choice. "No," he said honestly. "I don't think I'll ever pay enough, but I keep trying anyway." Vivian nodded slowly. "Okay, 6 months. You can start tomorrow. My office is in Georgetown, 3 blocks from the university. I'm there by 8. I'll be there at 7:30. After Lorraine walked Marcus to the elevator, she pressed a business card into his hand. "This is my personal attorney. He's drafting the contract we discussed. It'll be ready for your review by this evening." "Thank you." "No, Mr. Webb. Thank you." She hesitated. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask." "Why did you really say yes? And don't tell me it's just for Kennedy's scholarship. You could have negotiated something else, money job training help with your record. But you chose this. Why?" Marcus thought about the question. About Harold Bennett and the river, and 12 years of trying to figure out how to live with yourself when you've caused someone's death. "Because your daughter reminded me of someone," he said finally. "Who?" "Harold Bennett. Right before he died, he looked at me, and I saw in his eyes that he knew he was dying, that he knew I'd tried to save him and failed. But he wasn't angry. He was just sad. Like he felt bad for me for what I was about to go through." Marcus's throat tightened. "Your daughter had that same look underwater, like she'd already accepted she was going to die, and I can't let that happen again." Lorraine's eyes were bright. She squeezed his hand once. "She's lucky you were on that bridge. She's lucky she knows how to fight. That bought me time to get to her." The elevator arrived and Marcus stepped in. As the doors closed, Lorraine called out, "Mr. Webb, welcome to the family business." Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon doing research. He stopped at the library and used their computers to dig into the Ashford-Price family, their business holdings, their public profile. What he found was impressive and complicated. Dr. Lorraine Ashford-Price was a thoracic surgeon who'd made her money the old-fashioned way, working 80-hour weeks for 30 years and investing wisely. Her husband Vivian's father had died 10 years ago from pancreatic cancer. He'd been Jonathan Price, a civil rights attorney who'd made his name prosecuting police brutality cases in the 80s and 90s. Together, they'd built a fortune estimated at $3 billion, most of it in real estate, medical patents, and foundation endowments. Vivian was their only child. Princeton undergrad, Yale Law, but she'd never practiced. Instead, she'd spent the last 8 years running the Price Foundation for Criminal Justice Reform, focusing on helping women transition out of incarceration. According to recent articles, her work had helped over 2,000 women find housing, employment, and support services. Marcus also found the darker side. Death threats on social media from people who thought she was too soft on criminals. Op-eds from conservative commentators calling her naive. A protest outside her office 6 months ago, organized by a victims' rights group. But nothing that screamed murder conspiracy. Nothing that explained why someone would go to such elaborate lengths to kill her. He was still researching when his phone rang. Kennedy. Dad, where are you? School ended 20 minutes ago. Marcus checked the time and cursed. I'm sorry, baby. I'm on my way right now. Did you take the job? Yeah, I took it. There was a pause. Then so quietly he almost missed it. Thank you. Marcus picked up Kennedy and drove straight to Sidwell Friends. The campus looked like something from a movie. Brick buildings covered in ivy-manicured lawns, kids in uniforms walking with the kind of confidence that came from knowing they belonged. They sat in the parking lot, and Kennedy pressed her face to the window, staring at everything. This is real, she whispered. It's real. Can we go inside? Not today, but soon. Your mother's getting the paperwork together. Marcus paused. This is going to be different, Kennedy. The kids here, they come from money. Their parents are diplomats, politicians, doctors. It might be hard sometimes. Kennedy turned to look at him. Because I'm black and poor, and my dad went to prison. The bluntness of it hit Marcus in the chest. Yeah, because of all that. I can handle it. I know you can. But I need you to promise me something. If it gets too hard, if you're unhappy, or people are treating you bad, you tell me. We'll figure something out. I'm not going to quit because it's hard, Dad. I'm not asking you to quit. I'm asking you to talk to me. Kennedy reached over and squeezed his hand. Okay, I promise. They ate dinner at home, frozen pizza, because Marcus hadn't had time to shop, and Kennedy peppered him with questions about Vivian, about the job, about what protecting someone actually involved. Is it dangerous? She asked. Might be. Are you scared? Marcus considered lying, then remembered his promise to always be honest with her. Yeah, a little. Because you might mess up again. Because I might fail. There's a difference. Kennedy thought about that while she picked pepperoni off her pizza slice. Mr. Harrison says that failure is just information, that you can't fail if you learn something from trying. Mr. Harrison is a smart man. So if you try to protect her and something bad happens anyway, that's not failure. That's just information. Marcus smiled despite the weight in his chest. When did you get to be smarter than me? I've always been smarter. You just don't always notice. She grinned, then turned serious again. But for real, Dad, I'm proud of you, for trying. Later that night, after Kennedy was asleep, Marcus sat at their kitchen table reviewing the contract Lorraine's attorney had emailed. It was comprehensive and clear. 6 months of employment as a security consultant, salary of $75,000 paid in monthly installments. Health insurance included, plus Kennedy's full scholarship to Sidwell Friends, regardless of outcome. There was also a liability clause. If Marcus was injured or killed in the line of duty, his estate would receive a $1 million payout, and Kennedy's scholarship would include a college fund. The amount made Marcus's head spin. $1 million. More money than he could imagine. But it also meant Lorraine understood exactly how dangerous this was, that she expected he might die protecting her daughter. He signed the contract at 11 p.m. and emailed it back. Then he pulled out a notebook and started making lists. Everything he knew about the accident. Everything he didn't know. Every possible threat vector. Every vulnerability in Vivian's daily routine. Every question that needed answering. By 2 a.m. he had 5 pages of notes and more questions than answers. But he also had a plan, or the beginning of one. He set his alarm for 5:30 and tried to sleep. Failed. Got up at 4 and went for a run in the dark, his breath fogging in the cold air, thinking about Harold Bennett and Vivian Ashford-Price and all the ways this could go wrong. At 7:15, he stood outside the Price Foundation offices in Georgetown. The building was narrow brick wedged between a coffee shop and a bookstore, with a small sign that said, Price Foundation for Criminal Justice Reform, in tasteful gold letters. Marcus positioned himself across the street where he could watch the entrance without being obvious. At 7:45, a black town car pulled up and Vivian got out. She moved carefully, still recovering, but her posture was straight and her expression was composed. She wore a dark blue suit and carried a leather briefcase, every inch the professional philanthropist. She paused at the door and looked across the street. Found Marcus immediately and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Then she went inside and Marcus's new job officially began. The morning passed slowly. Marcus watched people come and go, mostly women, mostly black and Latina, many looking nervous or uncertain. Vivian's clients, he assumed. Women trying to rebuild lives that the prison system had destroyed. At 10:30, a white man in his 50s approached the building. He wore an expensive suit and moved with the kind of confidence that came from never being questioned. He tried the door, found it locked, and knocked hard. Vivian appeared, and there was a conversation Marcus couldn't hear. The man was gesturing angrily. Vivian's body language was calm but firm. After about 2 minutes, she stepped back and closed the door. The man stood there for a moment, clearly furious, then walked away. Marcus memorized his face, his clothing, the way he moved. At 11, Marcus crossed the street and knocked on the door himself. Vivian opened it, looking wary. "What are you doing?" "Who was that guy at 10:30? "A reporter. He wanted an interview about the accident. I declined." He looked angry. "Reporters usually are when you say no." She didn't move to let him in. "I told you not to interfere with my work." "I'm not interfering. I'm observing." Marcus glanced past her into the building. "Can I come in? See where you're working, understand the layout." Vivian hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. I have clients coming." The foundation office was small but well appointed. Reception area with comfortable chairs, offices on the second floor, a conference room where women could meet with counselors. Everything was clean, organized, professional. "How many people work here?" Marcus asked. 4 full-time staff including me, plus volunteers and counselors who come in as needed. Security system. Locks on the doors, camera at the entrance. That's it. This is a non-profit, Mr. Webb, not Fort Knox. Vivian crossed her arms. "We serve women who are already nervous about authority and surveillance. I'm not going to turn this place into a police state." Marcus nodded, understanding. "What about back exits?" "There's a rear door that leads to the alley. We keep it locked during business hours." "Show me." She led him through the building to a metal door at the back. It had a standard deadbolt, nothing special. Marcus tested it, checked the alley beyond. "This is a problem," he said. "Why?" "Because anyone who wants to get to you has an easy entry point. All they need is a lockpick and 30 seconds. Marcus turned to face her. "You need better security. Reinforced door, double locks at minimum." "I can't afford to renovate right now. Our budget—" "I'll pay for it." Vivian blinked. "You'll what?" "I'll pay for better security. Call it an investment in my contract." Marcus walked back toward the front. "You also need a panic button. Something you can press if you feel threatened that alerts police and whoever else needs to know." "That seems excessive." "Someone tried to kill you 4 days ago. Excessive is the point." Marcus stopped at the front door. "Look, I understand this is your space and you want to maintain a welcoming environment. But welcoming and safe aren't mutually exclusive." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The women who come here, they've spent years being controlled, monitored, restricted. I built this place to be different, to be somewhere they can breathe. I respect that. But if you're dead, this place closes, and those women lose their resource. So, we find a middle ground that keeps you alive, and keeps this place feeling safe for them." Marcus met her eyes. "That's what you're paying me for, to find that balance." She studied him carefully. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more aggressive, more like the bodyguards my mother usually hires." "I'm not a bodyguard. I'm someone who understands what it's like to need a second chance." Marcus gestured at the building around them. This place matters, what you're doing matters, and I'm going to make sure you stay alive to keep doing it. Something in Vivian's expression softened. 5 minutes is up, Mr. Webb. I have clients waiting. I'll be across the street if you need me. Will you be there all day? Until you leave for home, yeah. That's going to get boring very quickly. Marcus smiled. I've spent 12 years in an 8x10 cell. I can handle boring. Vivian left the foundation at 6:30 that evening, and Marcus was waiting across the street when her town car pulled up. She looked exhausted, moving slower than she had that morning, and he made a mental note that she was pushing herself too hard too soon after nearly drowning. She saw him and walked over instead of getting in the car. You've been standing there all day. Part of the job. Did you eat? Had a sandwich around noon. From where? Corner store down the block. Vivian shook her head. Tomorrow bring real food. There's a kitchen on the second floor. You can use the microwave. She paused. Also, my mother wants to have dinner with us tonight. Both of us. At her house in Kalorama. Marcus thought about Kennedy waiting at after-school care. I need to pick up my daughter first. Bring her. Mother insists. Vivian's tone suggested this wasn't negotiable. She wants to meet the girl whose education she's funding. They took separate cars. Marcus picked up Kennedy, who changed into her nicest outfit, a dress she'd outgrown slightly, but refused to let him donate, and they followed Vivian's town car through rush-hour traffic to one of DC's wealthiest neighborhoods. Lorraine's house was a Victorian mansion that probably cost more than Marcus would earn in several lifetimes. Kennedy pressed her face to the car window and whispered, "Oh my God." Language, Marcus said automatically. Dad, look at this place. It's like the White House, but prettier. They parked on the street and walked up to the front door where Lorraine herself answered instead of staff. She wore casual clothes, slacks, and a sweater, but still looked elegant. Marcus Kennedy, please come in. Thank you for joining us on short notice. She smiled at Kennedy. You must be Kennedy. I've heard wonderful things about you. Kennedy shook her hand, suddenly shy. Thank you for the scholarship, ma'am. It's really generous. You're very welcome. And please call me Dr. Ashford-Price, or Lorraine if you prefer. We don't stand on ceremony here. She led them through the house to a dining room that seated 12, but was set for 4. Vivian's just washing up. She'll be down in a moment. Dinner was catered, but served family-style roasted chicken, vegetables, fresh bread. Kennedy ate carefully, minding her manners, while Lorraine asked her about school and interests and future plans. I want to be a lawyer, Kennedy said. Like Vivian's dad was. I want to help people who can't afford good lawyers. That's admirable. What kind of law interests you? Civil rights. Or maybe criminal defense? Kennedy glanced at Marcus. My dad says the public defenders who helped him were overworked and underpaid, but they tried really hard anyway. I want to be like that, except maybe less overworked. Lorraine laughed. A worthy goal. You know, Jonathan Vivian's father used to say that the quality of a society is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable members. Did you know him? Kennedy asked. I was married to him for 32 years. He was my best friend. Lorraine's voice went soft. He would have liked you, Kennedy. He always believed in young people who wanted to change the world. Vivian came in then, hair damp from a shower, wearing jeans and a Georgetown sweatshirt. She looked younger without the professional armor, more approachable. Sorry I'm late, she said, sliding into the chair across from Marcus. Had to take a call with the program director. Everything all right? Lorraine asked. Fine, just logistics for tomorrow's launch. Vivian started serving herself food. Marcus thinks our security is inadequate. Marcus is correct, Lorraine said. I've been telling you that for months. Mother, we've been through this. I can't turn the foundation into a fortress. No one's asking you to, but better locks and a panic button aren't unreasonable precautions. Lorraine looked at Marcus. What else concerns you? Marcus set down his fork. The back alley access is too exposed. Anyone could approach from there without being seen. And she doesn't have security cameras covering the rear of the building, just the front entrance. Can that be fixed? Yeah, but it'll take time and money. Few $1,000s for proper cameras and locks. Consider it done. I'll have my people handle it tomorrow. Lorraine turned to Vivian. No arguments. Vivian's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Fine. Kennedy had been quiet, taking everything in, but now she spoke up. Can I ask something? Of course, Vivian said. Why would someone want to hurt you? I mean, you help people. That's a good thing. Vivian and Lorraine exchanged glances. Finally, Vivian said, Not everyone thinks what I do is good. Some people believe that anyone who's been to prison deserves to suffer forever. They don't like that I'm trying to give women second chances. That's stupid, Kennedy said bluntly. Then, catching herself, Sorry, but it is. Everyone makes mistakes. Not everyone makes the same kinds of mistakes, Vivian said gently. The women I help, many of them committed serious crimes. Drugs, theft, sometimes violence. Society says they should pay forever. But they already went to prison. Isn't that paying? You'd think so. But when you get out, you can't find housing because landlords won't rent to felons. Can't find jobs because employers run background checks. Can't get student loans or professional licenses. Can't even vote in some states. Vivian's voice was passionate now. So you've served your time, but you're still being punished. And when you can't survive legally, you go back to crime. And the cycle continues. Kennedy looked at Marcus. Is that what happened to you? Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, baby, that's exactly what happened. I came home from the Marines, couldn't find work because I didn't have the right skills. Got depressed, started drinking, made bad choices trying to keep us afloat. But you have a job now. Because I got lucky. Because Dale took a chance on me even though he didn't have to. Most people don't get that chance. That's what I'm trying to change, Vivian said. I want to create a system where people like your father don't have to rely on luck. Where they can rebuild their lives with support instead of obstacles. Kennedy thought about that while she ate her chicken. Then she said, So the people who want to hurt you, they don't want that system to exist. Exactly. Why not? Because some people profit from keeping others down. Private prisons make money from incarceration. Companies exploit prison labor. Politicians win elections by being tough on crime. Vivian's voice was tired. And some people just believe in punishment over redemption. They think if you commit a crime, you should suffer forever. That's not what the Bible says, Kennedy said. We learned in Sunday school that everyone deserves forgiveness. Lorraine smiled. Your daughter is wise beyond her years, Marcus. Gets that from her mother, Marcus said quietly. The room went still. Kennedy's eyes dropped to her plate. Lorraine and Vivian both looked uncomfortable, clearly sensing they'd stumbled onto difficult territory. Finally, Kennedy said, My mom died when I was 4. Cancer. I don't remember her much. I'm so sorry, Vivian said softly. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay. But it was a long time ago. Kennedy looked up. Dad says she was really smart and funny and kind. He says I have her eyes. Marcus reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand. You do. They finished dinner with lighter conversation. Afterward, Lorraine showed Kennedy her late husband's library, while Vivian pulled Marcus aside. We need to talk about tomorrow, she said. The launch event starts at 10. We're expecting about 50 people, clients, donors, media. It's going to be chaotic. That's a lot of exposure. It's also important. We've been planning this for months. I can't cancel because of hypothetical threats. Marcus understood, but didn't like it. Okay, but I need a guest list floor plan of the venue, and I'll need to scope it out beforehand. The event is at the foundation. You've already seen the building. I've seen it empty. I need to see it set up for 50 people. Need to know where the exits are, where someone could hide where you'll be standing. You're serious about this? Someone tried to kill you. Yeah, I'm serious. Marcus met her eyes. Look, I know this is inconvenient. I know it makes you feel watched and restricted. But that's what staying alive looks like right now. Vivian wrapped her arms around herself. I hate this. I hate being afraid. I know. I hate that I can't trust people anymore. That I have to question everyone's motives. That's smart, not paranoid. It doesn't feel smart. It feels exhausting. She looked at him. How do you do it? Live with constant suspicion after everything you've been through. Marcus thought about prison, about learning to sleep with one eye open, about the hypervigilance that never quite went away. You just do. Eventually it becomes background noise. And you focus on the things that matter, your work, your family, the people you're trying to help. Does it get easier? No, but you get stronger. Vivian nodded slowly. Okay. Tomorrow at 10. I'll email you the guest list tonight. They collected Kennedy from the library where she was deep in conversation with Lorraine about medical school and women in STEM fields. On the drive home, Kennedy was quiet until they were almost back to their neighborhood. I like them, she said. Dr. Ashford-Price and Vivian. They're nice. Yeah, they are. Are you really going to be able to keep Vivian safe? Marcus considered lying, then remembered his promise. I'm going to try as hard as I can. What if trying isn't enough? Then at least I tried. That's all anyone can do. Kennedy was quiet for another block. Then, Dad. What if the people who want to hurt Vivian come after us too, because you're helping her? It was the question Marcus had been dreading, the one that kept him up at night. That's why I told Dr. Ashford-Price that if I think you're in danger, I walk away. You come first always. But if you walk away, Vivian might die. Yeah. So either way, someone might get hurt. Marcus pulled into their building's parking lot and turned off the engine. Kennedy, I need you to listen to me. If anything feels wrong. If anyone approaches you at school. If you see someone following us. If you just have a bad feeling. You tell me immediately. Okay. Okay. And if I tell you to do something, you do it. No questions, no arguments. Can you promise me that? Kennedy looked scared, now really scared, and Marcus hated himself for putting that fear there. But she needed to understand. I promise, she whispered. He pulled her into a hug. Nothing's going to happen to you. I won't let it. You can't promise that. Watch me. That night, after Kennedy was asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the guest list Vivian had sent. 53 names, most of them women he didn't recognize. But 3 names stood out. Councilman James Mitchell, who'd run on a tough-on-crime platform and had publicly opposed the foundation's work. Pastor David Thompson, from a megachurch in Maryland, who'd preached sermons about the importance of punishment over redemption. And Richard Ashford-Price, Vivian's Uncle Lorraine's brother-in-law. Marcus pulled up information on all 3. Mitchell had financial ties to private prison companies. Thompson had been accused of embezzlement from his own church, but never charged. Richard Ashford-Price was a real estate developer who'd reportedly had conflicts with his brother Jonathan before Jonathan died. Any of them could have motive to hurt Vivian. All of them would be in the same room with her tomorrow. Marcus pulled out his phone and called Lorraine. She answered on the second ring. Marcus, is everything all right? I need information on 3 people attending tomorrow's event. Councilman Mitchell, Pastor Thompson, and Richard Ashford-Price. Silence. Then carefully. Richard is family. Jonathan's younger brother. That doesn't mean he's not a threat. He and Vivian have a complicated relationship, but I can't believe he'd hurt her. Humor me. What's the complication? Lorraine sighed. When Jonathan died, he left his entire estate to Vivian and me. Richard expected to inherit at least a portion. There was tension over that. But it's been 10 years. Surely, how much money are we talking? Jonathan's estate was worth approximately $500 million. Marcus let that sink in. And Richard got nothing. He received some personal items, but Jonathan felt strongly that his life's work should continue through Vivian's foundation and my medical research. Richard didn't agree. Has he contested the will? Several times, never successfully. Lorraine's voice was tight. But Richard wouldn't kill his own niece. He's petty and greedy, but he's not violent. Greedy people do violent things when enough money is involved. I understand your suspicion, but please be discreet tomorrow. If Richard thinks we suspect him, it could tear the family apart. Family's already torn if he's trying to kill Vivian, Marcus said bluntly. But I'll be careful. What about Mitchell and Thompson? Mitchell is a political opportunist. He uses fear of crime to win elections. Our foundation makes crime prevention look easy, which undermines his platform. Lorraine paused. He sent threatening letters. We filed police reports, but nothing came of it. What kind of threats? Standard political rhetoric, that we're coddling criminals endangering society. Once he said we deserve to face the consequences of our misguided compassion. But that's politician talk, not actionable threat. Depends how you read it. What about Thompson? He runs a prison ministry, supposedly helps incarcerated people find faith and redemption. But his version of redemption requires total submission to his authority. Vivian publicly criticized his methods, called them coercive and psychologically damaging. He wasn't pleased. Marcus made notes. Has he made direct threats? Not threats, but he's preached sermons about false prophets who lead people astray. He's named Vivian specifically as someone doing the devil's work by helping criminals without demanding sufficient penance. That's a threat wrapped in religious language. I suppose it is. But Marcus, half the city has said negative things about Vivian's work. We can't suspect everyone. No, but we can watch the ones with the most to lose if she succeeds. Marcus looked at his notes. I'll handle tomorrow, but I need you to do something for me. What? Find out if any of these three men have financial problems, gambling debts, business losses, anything that might make them desperate. You think they'd kill for money? People have killed for a lot less. Marcus thought about the check cashing robbery that destroyed his life. $500 seemed like everything when I was desperate. Imagine what someone would do for $500 million. After he hung up, Marcus spent another 2 hours researching. He found Mitchell's campaign finances mostly clean, but there were some questionable donations from real estate developers and private security firms. Thompson's megachurch had gone through bankruptcy 4 years ago and was still recovering. And Richard Ashford-Price had lost a major development deal 6 months ago when his financing fell through. All three men had motive. All three would be at the event tomorrow, and Marcus would be the only thing standing between them and Vivian. He finally went to bed around 2 a.m. and slept badly, dreaming of drowning and Harold Bennett's eyes and Kennedy asking him questions he couldn't answer. At 6 a.m. his phone rang. Lorraine. Marcus, thank God. Is Kennedy with you? He was immediately awake. She's asleep in her room. Why? Check. Please check right now. Marcus ran to Kennedy's room, heart hammering. She was there, buried under blankets, breathing steadily. She's fine. What's going on? Someone left a package on my doorstep this morning. My security team found it at 5:30 when they did their rounds. What kind of package? A box, with a note attached. Lorraine's voice shook. It says Vivian dies or the child dies. Choose. And there's a photo of Kennedy leaving school yesterday. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. I'm pulling her out of school. Today. Right now. Bring her here, both of you. My house is more secure than your apartment. I need to call my parole officer. Tell him what's happening. Do what you need to do. But Marcus... Lorraine's voice broke. I'm so sorry. I never thought they'd target your daughter. It's not your fault. But Marcus was already grabbing his go bag, the one he'd learned to keep packed in prison for emergencies. What was in the box? A dead rat. Jesus Christ. And a children's book. One of those cautionary tales about not trusting strangers. Marcus woke Kennedy as gently as he could. She was groggy, confused about why they were leaving so early. Pack a bag, baby. Clothes for a few days, anything important you can't leave behind. Why, what's wrong? Marcus knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Someone's trying to scare us. I need to keep you safe. So we're going to stay at Dr. Ashford-Price's house for a little while. Kennedy's eyes went wide. Are they going to hurt me? Not if I can help it. But I need you to move fast. Okay? Can you do that? She nodded and started throwing clothes into her backpack. Marcus called his parole officer's emergency line. Mr. Harrison answered, sounding half asleep and annoyed. Webb, it's 6 in the morning. Someone threatened my daughter, left a package with her photo and a note saying she dies if I keep working for Vivian Ashford-Price. Silence. Then, you called the police. Not yet. Calling you first per my conditions of release. Good. Don't call them yet. I'm coming to you. Harrison's voice was sharp now, fully alert. Where are you? Home. But I'm taking Kennedy to a secure location in Kalorama. Give me the address. I'll meet you there in an hour. And Webb, don't do anything stupid. Like what? Like deciding to handle this yourself. Let the professionals do their jobs. Marcus hung up and helped Kennedy pack. They were in the car 7 minutes later, driving through pre-dawn D.C., while Marcus checked his rearview mirror obsessively. Lorraine's house had security lights blazing when they pulled up. She met them at the door in a bathrobe, her face drawn with worry. Kennedy, sweetheart, I'm so sorry about all this. She ushered them inside. I've prepared a guest room for you upstairs. It's safe, I promise. Where's Vivian? Marcus asked. Still asleep. I haven't told her yet. Lorraine led Kennedy upstairs while Marcus waited in the foyer, hands clenched, trying to control the rage building in his chest. Someone had targeted his daughter, had taken her photo, followed her, threatened her life. And Marcus had brought this on her by agreeing to protect Vivian. When Lorraine came back down, she found him pacing. Kennedy's watching TV in her room. I told her to stay there until we figure out what's happening. Show me the package. Lorraine led him to her study, where the box sat on her desk, already photographed and documented by her security team. Marcus looked at it without touching. Brown cardboard standard shipping box, but no postage. Hand-delivered. The note was typed on plain white paper. Block letters, no signature, just the threat, and the photo of Kennedy. Marcus stared at the photo. Kennedy leaving school unaware she was being watched. The angle suggested the photographer had been across the street, maybe in a car, yesterday afternoon, which meant someone had followed them from Vivian's foundation to Kennedy's school, had watched Marcus pick her up, had taken this photo, knowing exactly what they'd do with it. I'm out, Marcus said flatly. I'm taking Kennedy and we're disappearing. You find someone else to protect your daughter. Marcus. No, this is exactly what I told you would happen. My daughter's in danger. We're done. Lorraine grabbed his arm. Please, just wait until my security team analyzes the package. Wait until the police? The police can't help. Whoever did this is smart and patient and willing to hurt a 12-year-old girl to get what they want. Marcus pulled away. I'm not gambling with Kennedy's life. Then let me protect her. Keep her here where my security can watch her. You keep working, we find who's behind this, and we end the threat for good. Or we all die, and I've failed everyone I care about. Again. The word hung between them. Lorraine's expression softened. You didn't fail Harold Bennett, Marcus. You tried to save him. That's not failure. He's still dead. Yes, but that's not on you. She moved closer. And if you walk away now, if we let these people win through fear, then they'll just keep doing this. To Vivian, to the next person who tries to help. Fear is their weapon. Don't give it to them. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to pack Kennedy in the car and drive until they hit a state where nobody knew their names. But he thought about Vivian saying she hated being afraid, about Kennedy asking if trying was enough, about 12 years spent wondering if he could ever make up for one terrible mistake. "One condition," he said finally. "Kennedy stays here under your security's protection. I go to the event alone, and after today, we reassess everything." Agreed. Mr. Harrison arrived 30 minutes later with 2 FBI agents. They examined the package, took statements, and promised to investigate. But Marcus could see in their eyes that they didn't have much hope. The package had been wiped clean of fingerprints, the note was untraceable, and the photo gave them no leads. "We'll increase patrols around the area," one agent said, "and we'll coordinate with DC Metro to keep an eye on your daughter's school." "She's not going to school," Marcus said. "She's staying here." "Mr. Webb, we understand you're upset, but we can't justify protective custody based on one threatening note." "Then I'll protect her myself." The agents exchanged glances. Harrison cleared his throat. "Marcus, can I talk to you privately?" They stepped into Lorraine's garden. Harrison lit a cigarette even though it was barely 7 a.m. "You need to think carefully about your next move," he said. "Because right now, you're a convicted felon associating with people who are clearly involved in something dangerous. And if this goes sideways, you're the one who ends up back inside." "I'm trying to protect my daughter." "I know. But the system doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about results." Harrison took a drag. "If something happens to Vivian Ashford-Price while you're supposed to be protecting her, who do you think takes the fall? The rich black family with lawyers or the ex-con with a record?" Marcus felt sick. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying walk away. Take Kennedy somewhere safe. Let these people handle their own problems. And if Vivian dies because I walked away, then that's on whoever's trying to kill her, not on you." Harrison dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his heel. "But if you stay and she dies anyway, that's on you. Choice is yours." Marcus thought about Vivian saying she hated being afraid, about Lorraine begging him to protect her daughter, about Harold Bennett's eyes right before he died. "I'm staying," he said. Harrison sighed. "Then God help you, Webb, because I don't think anyone else can." The foundation building was already buzzing with activity when Marcus arrived at 8:30. Caterers were setting up tables, volunteers were hanging banners, and Vivian's staff was running through last-minute logistics. Marcus moved through the space methodically, checking every corner, every exit, every window that could provide a line of sight. Vivian found him in the back alley, examining the new locks that had been installed overnight. "You look terrible," she said. "Didn't sleep much." "Mother told me about the package, about Kennedy." Her voice was tight. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. This is exactly what I was afraid of." "Not your fault. Isn't it? Someone's threatening your daughter because you're helping me." Vivian leaned against the brick wall. "Maybe you should walk away. Take Kennedy somewhere safe. I'll figure something else out." Marcus turned to face her. "Is that what you want?" "I want your daughter to be safe. I want you to not have to choose between protecting her and protecting me. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Kennedy's safe at your mother's house with professional security. And I'm here doing what I agreed to do. But if something happens to her, it won't." Marcus's voice was hard with certainty. "Because I won't let it. And neither will the 3 ex-Secret Service agents watching her right now." Vivian searched his face. "You're sure about this?" "I'm not sure about anything except that running doesn't solve problems. It just delays them." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her photos he'd taken of the venue. "Now help me understand the event flow. Where are you standing during the presentation? Who's introducing you? What's the timeline?" They spent the next hour going through every detail. The presentation would start at 10:30 in the main conference room. Vivian would speak for 15 minutes, then introduce 3 women from her program who'd successfully transitioned back to society. After that, there would be a reception with light refreshments and networking. "The three people I'm worried about," Marcus said. "Councilman Mitchell, Pastor Thompson, and your Uncle Richard. Where will they be sitting?" Mitchell confirmed he's not coming. Said something came up last minute. Vivian checked her phone. "Thompson is supposed to be here, but he hasn't confirmed. And Uncle Richard always sits in the back. He doesn't like being in the spotlight." "Why does he come at all?" "Family obligation, I think. He and my father had their differences, but he loved my mother. He shows up to these things to support her, even if he doesn't support the work." Vivian's expression was complicated. "He's not a bad person, Marcus. He's just bitter about the inheritance." "Bitter people do desperate things." "Not Uncle Richard. He might be petty and small-minded, but he's not violent." Marcus didn't argue, but he made a mental note to keep close watch on Richard Ashford-Price regardless. At 9:45, guests started arriving. Marcus positioned himself near the entrance where he could see everyone coming in. He'd changed into a suit that Lorraine had provided, not expensive, but professional enough that he looked like he belonged. The story was that he was a program consultant, evaluating the foundation's effectiveness. Nobody questioned it. Richard Ashford-Price arrived at 10:15. He was in his mid-60s, white-haired, with the kind of prosperous appearance that came from old money. He walked with a slight limp and carried a brass-handled cane that looked expensive. He saw Vivian across the room, and his expression flickered with something Marcus couldn't quite read. Affection, maybe, or regret. Then he moved to the back row and sat down, settling the cane across his lap. Pastor Thompson arrived 5 minutes later. He was a large black man in his 50s, wearing an immaculate white suit that probably cost more than Marcus's car. He had the kind of presence that drew attention, the charisma that came from years of commanding congregations. He went straight to Vivian and embraced her like they were old friends. "Sister Vivian, it's wonderful to see you doing the Lord's work." "Pastor Thompson, thank you for coming." Vivian's smile was polite but didn't reach her eyes. "I know you're busy." "Never too busy to support redemption and rehabilitation. Though I must say I hope your program includes a strong spiritual component. Faith is essential to true transformation. We offer chaplain services for those who want them, but we don't require religious participation." Thompson's smile tightened. "A mistake, I think, but we can discuss that another time." He moved toward the seating area, shaking hands and blessing people as he went. Marcus watched him carefully. The man had that particular combination of charm and certainty that Marcus had learned to distrust in prison. The guys who spoke in absolutes, who claimed to have all the answers, were usually the most dangerous. At 10:30, Vivian took the podium. She looked composed and professional, and when she started speaking, her voice was clear and passionate. 10 years ago, my father told me something that changed my life. He said that we judge a society not by how it treats its most successful members, but by how it treats those who have fallen. And in America, we have decided that people who make mistakes should pay for them forever. She talked about the challenges facing formerly incarcerated women, about housing discrimination, employment barriers, the loss of voting rights, about how the system was designed to ensure failure rather than success. But what if we designed it differently? What if we decided that punishment should have a limit and redemption should have a path? That's what the Price Foundation is trying to build. Not a free pass, not an excuse, but a genuine second chance. The three women she'd invited to speak were powerful. One had been imprisoned for drug possession and was now a certified addiction counselor. Another had served time for fraud and now ran a small business, helping other formerly incarcerated people with financial literacy. The third had been convicted of assault and was now a domestic violence advocate. Their stories were raw and honest. They talked about their crimes, their regrets, the difficulty of rebuilding after prison. But they also talked about hope, about the people who'd believed in them when nobody else would. Marcus found himself moved despite his intention to stay focused on potential threats. These women could have been him, In another life with slightly different choices, he could have been standing at that podium talking about his second chance. The presentation ended to strong applause. As people moved toward the reception area, Marcus kept his eyes on Richard and Thompson. Richard had clapped politely, but his expression was disconnected. Thompson had applauded enthusiastically, but Marcus noticed his jaw was tight, his smile forced. During the reception, Marcus stayed close to Vivian as she worked the room. She was good at this, engaging with donors, thanking volunteers, making everyone feel valued. But Marcus could see the strain around her eyes, the way her shoulders tensed whenever someone approached from behind. Thompson cornered her near the refreshment table. "A powerful presentation, Sister Vivian. Though I noticed you didn't mention the role of faith in rehabilitation." "That's because faith is personal, Pastor. Some women find strength in religion, others find it elsewhere. We support whatever works for each individual. But without accepting Christ as their Savior, how can they truly be redeemed?" Thompson's voice was louder now, attracting attention. "You're giving them tools for earthly success, but ignoring their eternal souls." "With respect, Pastor, that's not the Foundation's role. We help with practical needs, housing, employment, education. Spiritual needs are between each woman and whatever higher power she chooses to believe in. So you're creating secular redemption, redemption without repentance, without submission to God's will." Thompson's face was flushing. "This is exactly what I warned my congregation about. False prophets offering easy salvation." Marcus moved closer, ready to intervene if necessary. Vivian's voice remained calm but firm. "I'm not offering salvation, Pastor. I'm offering practical support. There's a difference. Is there? Because I see women here today who committed terrible crimes and you're celebrating them like heroes. Where's the acknowledgement of their victims? Where's the penance? They served their sentences. That's the penance society demanded. Now they're trying to build better lives. If you can't support that, then perhaps this isn't the right venue for you." Thompson's eyes blazed. "You're enabling sin, Sister Vivian, and one day you'll answer for it." He turned and walked out, his white suit bright against the doorway. Several guests watched him go with uncomfortable expressions. Vivian took a shaky breath. Marcus touched her elbow lightly. "You okay?" "Fine. He does this every time. Makes a scene, storms out, then preaches about me on Sunday." She smiled, but it was brittle. "I'm used to it." "Doesn't make it right." "No, but it makes it predictable." She moved to greet another donor, and Marcus followed, scanning the crowd. Richard Ashford-Price was still in his corner, nursing a glass of wine. He'd spoken to no one, just watched the proceedings with that distant expression. Marcus decided it was time to introduce himself. "Mr. Ashford-Price, I'm Marcus Webb. I'm consulting with the Foundation on Program Development." Richard looked him up and down, with barely concealed disdain. "Are you now? And what makes you qualified to evaluate my niece's work?" "Personal experience. I spent 12 years in federal prison." "Ah. One of Vivian's projects." Richard took a sip of wine. "She collects you people like some women collect stray cats. Brings you home, cleans you up, expects you to be grateful forever." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "She's helped a lot of people rebuild their lives." "Has she helped you? Or are you just another ex-convict playing at redemption while waiting for the next opportunity to screw up?" "I guess time will tell." Richard smiled without warmth. "Time always does. You know what they say about leopards and spots. People don't really change, Mr. Webb. They just get better at hiding what they are." "Is that what you believe?" "That's what I know. I've watched my niece waste 10 years and millions of dollars on people who'll never amount to anything. My brother Jonathan had the same blind spot, couldn't see that some people are simply broken beyond repair. Your brother helped a lot of people during his career. My brother was an idealist who died disappointed. Every case he won, every client he saved, it didn't change the fundamental nature of humanity. People are selfish, violent, and weak. No amount of social programming changes that." Marcus thought about all the ways he could respond to that. About the women here today who'd proved Richard wrong. About Kennedy and her dreams of becoming a lawyer who helped people. About second chances and redemption and the possibility of change. Instead, he said, "Thank you for your perspective, sir. I'll take it under advisement." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You're not really a consultant, are you? You're here because my sister-in-law is paranoid about threats. She thinks someone's trying to hurt Vivian." "Are they?" "Of course not. The accident was just that, an accident. But Lorraine can't accept that her precious daughter isn't invincible. So she hires men like you to play bodyguard and pretend there's danger lurking around every corner." "And you think there's no danger?" "I think Vivian courts controversy with her work. She takes risks, pushes boundaries, makes enemies. If something bad happens, it'll be because of her own choices, not some elaborate conspiracy." Richard finished his wine. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I've fulfilled my family obligation. Tell Vivian I said goodbye." He walked out, his cane tapping against the floor, and Marcus watched him go with growing unease. The man's bitterness was palpable, but was it enough to motivate murder? Richard stood to inherit nothing. If Vivian died, Lorraine would get everything. Unless Richard thought he could contest the will more successfully if both women were gone. The thought made Marcus's blood run cold. The event wound down around 1 p.m. Vivian looked exhausted, but satisfied as the last guest left. Her staff started cleaning up while she collapsed into a chair in her office. "That went well, I think. No major disasters." "Thompson's outburst was pretty major," Marcus said. "That was mild for him. Last year he brought protesters with signs calling me a devil worshipper." She rubbed her temples. "At least he left before dessert this time." Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "Your uncle said some interesting things." "Let me guess. That I'm wasting my life on lost causes, that people don't change, that Dad would be disappointed in me." "Pretty much." "Richard's been saying that for 10 years. He thinks the foundation is a waste of family money that should have gone to him." Vivian's voice was tired. "He's not wrong that it's expensive. We go through about $15 million a year in operating costs. But the return on investment, the number of women who don't reoffend, who become productive citizens, it's worth it. He suggested that if something happens to you, it'll be your own fault for taking risks." Vivian's head snapped up. "He said that?" "Not in those words exactly, but the implication was clear." "Jesus." She stood and paced. "I need to talk to my mother. If he's involved somehow." Her phone rang. She looked at the screen and frowned. "It's the hospital. Georgetown. Why would they be calling?" She answered. "Hello. Yes, this is Vivian Ashford-Price." Marcus watched her face go pale. She swayed, and he moved to steady her. How bad?" Her voice was shaking. "I'm on my way. Tell her I'm on my way." She hung up and looked at Marcus with naked terror. "It's Mother. She collapsed at home an hour ago. They think it's a stroke." They took Vivian's town car, the driver breaking every speed limit to get them to Georgetown Hospital. Marcus called Lorraine's house on the way and got one of the security guards. "Where's Kennedy?" he demanded. "Still in her room watching TV. Mrs. Ashford-Price told us not to disturb her." "Is everything all right, sir?" "Dr. Ashford-Price is in the hospital. I need someone with eyes on Kennedy until I get there. You understand, don't let her out of your sight." "Yes, sir. I'll go up there now." They arrived at the hospital and were directed to the intensive care unit. Lorraine was in a private room hooked up to monitors and IVs. A doctor was adjusting her medication when Vivian burst in. "Mother!" She grabbed Lorraine's hand. "Can you hear me?" Lorraine's eyes fluttered open. Her face was slack on one side, her speech slurred when she tried to talk. "Vivi." "Don't try to talk. You're going to be okay. You're at Georgetown, you're getting the best care." The doctor pulled Marcus aside. "Are you family?" "Working for the family." "What happened?" "Ischemic stroke. Blood clot in the left middle cerebral artery. We administered TPA within the treatment window, so her prognosis is cautiously optimistic. but she'll need extensive rehabilitation. How did this happen? She's only 56. Stroke can happen at any age, but... The doctor hesitated. We're running a full tox screen. There were some anomalies in her initial blood work that concern us. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. What kind of anomalies? Elevated levels of certain compounds that aren't consistent with her medical history or current medications. It may be nothing, but we need to rule out toxic exposure. You're saying someone might have poisoned her. I'm saying we're investigating all possibilities. The doctor glanced at Vivian, who was sobbing quietly while holding her mother's hand. Has Mrs. Ashford-Price had any unusual food or drink in the last 24 hours? Anything out of her normal routine? Marcus thought about the package left on Lorraine's doorstep. The dead rat. The threat. She had coffee this morning. I watched her drink it around 6 a.m. Did she make it herself? I don't know. Her staff might have. We'll need to test anything she consumed. And Mr. Webb, if there's any reason to believe this wasn't natural, the police need to be involved immediately. Marcus stepped into the hallway and called the FBI agent who'd investigated the threatening package, explained the situation. Within 20 minutes, agents were at Lorraine's house collecting evidence and questioning staff. Marcus went back into Lorraine's room. Vivian was still holding her mother's hand, talking to her in a low voice. Lorraine's eyes were closed, but her fingers twitched in Vivian's grip. I need to check on Kennedy, Marcus said quietly. Vivian looked up, her face streaked with tears. Go. I'll stay here with Mother. I'm leaving 2 agents outside the door. Don't let anyone in except medical staff. And if you feel unsafe for any reason, you call me immediately. Marcus, Vivian's voice cracked. This is because of me, isn't it? They went after Mother because I wouldn't back down. We don't know that yet. Yes, we do. The package this morning threatened Kennedy or me. So they went after my mother instead. They're taking away everyone I love until I have nothing left to fight for. Marcus knelt beside her chair. Listen to me. Your mother is alive. Kennedy is safe. You're protected. Whoever's doing this, they're escalating because they're desperate. That means we're close to finding them. Or it means they're going to keep hurting people until I'm dead. Then we don't give them that chance. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. I'm going to get Kennedy and bring her here. You're going to stay with your mother. And we're going to figure out who's behind this, and we're going to stop them. How? I don't know yet, but I'm not giving up. And neither are you. He left Vivian with the FBI agents and drove to Lorraine's house. Kennedy ran to him when he arrived, throwing her arms around his waist. Dad, what's happening? The security guys won't tell me anything, and you've been gone all day. Dr. Ashford-Price is sick. She's in the hospital. We need to go there and stay with Vivian. Is she going to die? Marcus thought about lying about protecting Kennedy from the harsh truth. But he'd promised to always be honest. I don't know, baby. The doctors are doing everything they can. Kennedy was quiet on the drive to the hospital. When they arrived, Marcus took her straight to Lorraine's room. Vivian looked up when they entered, her eyes red from crying. Kennedy went to her without hesitation and hugged her. I'm sorry about your mom. My mom got sick too. She didn't make it. But maybe yours will. The doctors are really good here. Vivian's composure cracked. She pulled Kennedy close and sobbed into her hair while Marcus looked away, giving them privacy. His phone buzzed with a text from the FBI agent. Preliminary results showed traces of brodifacoum in Lorraine's coffee, a powerful anticoagulant used in rat poison. Someone had deliberately poisoned her. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about the dead rat in the morning's package. The message was clear. They could reach anyone, anytime, and they would keep killing until Vivian was dead. Unless Marcus stopped them first. He stepped into the hallway and called the security team at Lorraine's house. I need you to pull footage from every camera you have for the last 48 hours. Focus on anyone who went near the kitchen, anyone who had access to Dr. Ashford-Price's coffee maker. We already pulled that for the FBI, sir. There were only 3 people in the kitchen this morning: the housekeeper, the morning security guard, and Mrs. Ashford-Price herself. Send me the footage, all of it. Marcus watched the security footage on his phone, scanning for anything suspicious. The housekeeper had prepared coffee at 5:30 a.m. like she did every morning. Nothing unusual in her movements. The security guard had poured himself a cup around 6, also normal. And Lorraine had come down at 6:15 and made herself a fresh pot. Except. Marcus rewound the footage. There at 6:12 a.m., 3 minutes before Lorraine came downstairs. The housekeeper returned to the kitchen, pulled something from her pocket, and added it to the coffee pot. The movement was quick practiced. Then she left. Marcus called the FBI agent. Elena Martinez, your housekeeper. She poisoned the coffee. We already have her in custody. She's not talking. Who hired her? When did she start working there? 3 months ago. Came with excellent references from another family in the area. Check those references. I bet they're fake. Marcus paced the hallway. And check her financials. Someone paid her to do this. 2 hours later, the FBI agent called back. You were right. The references were forged, and Elena Martinez isn't her real name. We're running her prints now. What about her bank account? That's the interesting part. She received a wire transfer of $50,000 2 days ago from an offshore account we're still trying to trace. Can you trace it? We're working on it, but these things take time. Time was exactly what they didn't have. Marcus returned to Lorraine's room, where Kennedy had fallen asleep in a chair and Vivian was still holding her mother's hand. They found who poisoned her, Marcus said quietly. Your mother's housekeeper, but she was hired by someone else, someone with money and resources. Vivian looked up. Uncle Richard. We don't know that. Who else could it be? He has motive, he has money, and he's been bitter about the inheritance for 10 years. Her voice was hard now, anger replacing fear. I'm going to confront him. No, you're going to stay here where you're safe. I'll talk to him. He's my uncle. You should be with your mother. Let me handle Richard. Vivian studied his face. Then she nodded slowly. If he did this, I want him to pay. I want him to rot in prison for the rest of his life. If he did this, he will. I promise you that. Marcus called Richard's house. No answer. He tried Richard's cell. Voicemail. He left a message saying they needed to talk urgently about Lorraine. Then he called one of the FBI agents. I need an address for Richard Ashford-Price, and I need it now. Richard lived in Alexandria, in a historic district where houses cost millions and privacy was guaranteed. Marcus drove there alone, leaving Kennedy with Vivian and the FBI protection. Richard's house was dark when Marcus arrived at 8 p.m. No cars in the driveway, no lights in the windows. Marcus knocked anyway. No answer. He tried the door. Locked. He walked around to the back and found a window slightly open. Prison had taught him a lot of things, including how to break into places quietly. Inside the house was expensively furnished, but cold, impersonal. Marcus moved through the rooms, looking for anything that might connect Richard to the poisoning, to the accident, to any of it. In Richard's study, Marcus found a laptop open on the desk. He woke it up and found it wasn't password protected. Sloppy for a man supposedly orchestrating murders. Marcus opened the email application and started scrolling. Business correspondence. Family updates, nothing suspicious. Then he found a folder labeled V, buried in the archives. Inside were emails spanning 3 years, all to the same anonymous address, all discussing Vivian. Marcus read through them, his stomach sinking. Richard was paying someone to surveil Vivian, to document her movements, her routines, her vulnerabilities. The most recent email was from 2 days ago. Accident failed. Alternative methods necessary. Maximum payment on completion. Marcus took photos of everything with his phone. Then he kept searching. In a desk drawer, he found bank statements showing regular wire transfers to offshore accounts. $50,000 here, $75,000 there. Over $2 million in the last 6 months alone. He also found something else. A handwritten note in Richard's handwriting. Jonathan got everything. The house, the money, the respect. Even in death he wins. But Vivian is mortal, and mortality can be arranged. Marcus was photographing the note when he heard a sound behind him. He turned to find Richard standing in the study doorway, his brass-handled cane raised like a weapon. "I knew someone would come eventually," Richard said calmly. "I just didn't expect it to be you."